At the start of this past century, there was something of a battle raging on in the state of California under its zero emissions mandate, which was established in an attempt to reduce air pollution across the state and foster the development of cleaner vehicle drivetrains. Automakers above a certain size are required to build and sell a certain percentage of electric cars in order to be allowed to sell their regular internal combustion engine vehicles within California. Those mandates gave rise to both the first-generation Toyota RAV4 EV and GM's EV1, as well as the Ford Ranger EV and GM S10 EV pickup trucks, as well as a small number of other plug-in vehicles too. And it was the mandate and those vehicles which became the subject of the now well-known docu-film Who Killed the Electric Car, as well as the actions of all of those involved who successfully lobbied, at least in the automaker world, to end the zero-emission mandate and ultimately end up crushing most of the cars they made to satisfy that mandate. That led many who like plug-in cars to swear off General Motors, Toyota and other automakers for life. When Tesla came along with its revolutionary Roadster in 2008, it provided those people an automaker who wanted to support plug-in cars, an automaker that wasn't like others, who was there for plug-in fans to champion and support. And since that point, that's exactly what many early adopters have done, helping Tesla to achieve several massive market dominances and, by the end of last month, enter into a healthy amount of profitability. Some of those automakers who were involved in that original fight with the state of California, like General Motors and Nissan, have changed their approach to plug-in cars quite considerably. Others, like Toyota and its random self-charging hybrid ad campaign, haven't. Yet some people still accuse any automaker that isn't Tesla as being against plug-in cars. For example, Nissan recently got it in the neck for its poor decisions on the second-generation Leaf EV, its poor advertising of quick charge times, and its disastrous replacement battery program price hike for first-gen Leafs. GM, meanwhile, has been given a tough time because of the numbers of Volt and Bolt EV models it's been producing and selling, with enthusiasts dismissing GM's promised increase in electric vehicle production and future EV models by reminding everyone of the EV1 and questioning GM's low amount of advertising for its current plug-in cars. And to some extent, those critics have a point. Although, I'd also note in General Motors' case, this seems to be rather a mixed bag, as illustrated recently. As I'm sure some of you will know, the current administration under Trump has proposed freezing corporate average fuel economy standards for passenger vehicles at their current levels, axing the higher targets that were set by the previous administration. It was done partly because automakers had been complaining that the targets set by the previous administration were simply too high, would add too much cost to new vehicles, and would harm the US auto industry. At the same time, the current administration provided its own documentation to back up those claims, leading to some rather interesting publications by the US EPA and National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. This past week, as the consultation period for the aforementioned proposal runs out, GM surprised everyone by calling on the US government to implement a California-style zero-emission vehicle mandate across the US, lift the limit set out by the US federal tax code for electric vehicle rebates based on production volume, and help consumers to make the switch from internal combustion engines to electric. Shortly after, it also called the very CAFE target set by the previous administration, the ones that the current administration is trying to end, as not technically feasible or economically practical. Wait a sec. GM just made two seemingly contrasting statements, one in favour of plug-in cars and one in favour of lowering fuel economy targets. They seem to be mutually exclusive, so what's going on? Is GM in favour of EVs or not? I'm sure some of you have already come to your decision, but I think that despite an apparent lack of wanting to meet tougher targets, I think GM might just see a future in plug-in cars. Nope, don't turn off. I'll explain. You see, GM has invested a lot of money in recent years in plug-in cars. It's one of the few automakers outside of Tesla which seems to have a healthy supply of lithium-ion battery packs for its vehicles. It's reinvented the way it designs its cars. The Bolt EV is a good example, so that it can accelerate the development and production process of those vehicles. And having sold off brands and dropped out of markets that it wasn't doing so well with and in, it seems to be operating a little more leaner than it was back in the noughties when it asked for government bailout money. It is, simply put, no longer the GM of Bob Lutz. And while it's hedging its bets with both plug-in and hydrogen vehicle development, most automakers outside of Tesla are doing this to some extent, GM has stated several times that it will be bringing 20 battery electric models to market by 2023. Other automakers like Ford have only promised electrified models, which means everything from a mild hybrid to a fully electric car. GM has also stated that it believes the future is electric. To that end, asking the Trump administration to implement a nationwide zero-emission vehicle mandate does make sense. After all, if GM really is going all in with electric in the future and has already vehicles in the pipeline, having a zero-emission mandate could help fund GM's development of those models, as well as secure sales. Not to mention give it a competitive edge over other automakers who have yet to really start building plug-in cars. In other words, a ZEV mandate would benefit a company if it already had the technology ready to go. So what of the other comment? The one saying it would rather not meet the Obama-era targets and would prefer historic ones instead. Well, that can also be explained. Historically, CAFE standards have risen their targets by an average of 1 or 2% every few years. The most recent proposal by the previous administration raised that target by around 4.5%. And GM, along with other automakers, believes that inflation in targets is unachievable because of the rate of change. They say it's too steep. Okay then, if GM is all in with electric cars, why is it saying stuff like this? Well, honestly, I think it's because GM, like other automakers other than Tesla, is planning a gradual ramp up in plug-in vehicle production. It's the only way they can do it. And that means for now continuing to sell existing drivetrain options. Since the lion's share of its current market volume comes from larger vehicles like SUVs and light-duty pickups, having a lower CAFE target does mean that it can continue to sell its existing cars while developing plug-in models. Why can't it do both? Well, that's simple. In order to improve efficiency on the internal combustion engine vehicles, GM would have to spend some significant money on engine development and testing. It makes more sense to take the money that would have to be spent there and to invest it in electric vehicle tech instead. At the same time, a nationwide plug-in vehicle mandate would ensure GM's currently spent R&D on plug-in vehicles won't be wasted by a simple drop in fuel economy standards. Given it stated that it would like an increase in economy targets, just not the 4.5% of the previous administration, I hope that my assessment is correct. And unlike Volkswagen, it's not looking to introduce new internal combustion engine models, just continue to sell the existing ones. Do you agree? Is GM still trying to kill the electric car, or is it finally trying to bring about a plug-in revolution? Let me know your thoughts below. That's it. Don't forget to give us your thumbs up or your thumbs down, leave a comment, and as always, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. As always, thanks to our Patreon supporters, without which we'd not be able to produce any daily content for you all to enjoy. A special thanks today goes to Roderick Sweats, Matthew Carroll, Fred Ernani, Michael, Grant Collins, Petra Pruneau, Johnny Kansan, Sanjay Matthew, Robert Mines, Glenn Axon, Sitsa Vies, Mike Gilbert, Andrew Chirone, Detail Bear, Brian Davis, and Oren Haynes, all of which joined the Patreon ranks in the past week. Thanks to Frank, Tim, Sergey, Benedict and Frederick, all of whom increased their donations this month. You can join them all at patreon.com/transport evolved. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep evolving.